yeah, we met that we kind of started speaking that day. And our conversations were like, we just started, honestly, it was very natural, right? It was very organic. It was more like, we talked about just life. I think this is what led us to be in this podcast. It was like life, but it was just deeper than life. We were talking.
Yeah. It's a conversation not everybody understands.
Yeah.
And I'm not quick to, like, I don't meet somebody and I'm like, hey, come on the podcast. I don't do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, of course. But yeah, the conversation we had with, you have to be a certain type of person.
We were like aliens.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, you're just not from here. And we had this, I think we even said that, like, when you're in this world, but you're not of this world, like, or at least that's how I see it sometimes. And when I meet people that operate in that realm, it's like, they're like diamonds. Like, it's very special to me, a soul that's very enlightened. That's really what it is. It's an enlightened soul. And I think that somehow when we find each other, it's a really magical thing, because even if the podcast didn't happen, that conversation, for what it was worth, it was a great conversation. And it had nothing to do with work, although some of it did, but it was more just about the deep parts of life, like just going beyond the average, just knowing when your mind just operates not like the rest. When you have vision and you don't see, you're not just here seeing, you're here for something else. You have a certain type of vision. You have a certain type of outlook. It's like your third eye is open, or your spirit is awake. Right. You're awake. That's what it is. You're alive. There's a lot of people. I just had this conversation with someone a few days ago. I keep having conversations like this, like we were like, look around you. How many people are here, but they're not alive? Do you know how many people walk around and they're not alive? And it's a scary thought, but it's like, you're like dead inside. So you're just here. And those are the people that I aim to try to help in life. Like, life has there's purpose. We're all here for a reason. But when you're here for a reason, and that was what had happened with us. We just were like, I see you, like, I see you. I know, I already know what wave you're operating in. And we're vibrating on the same wave, and it was very magical. It was very nice. It was very inspiring, uplifting. And I remember you were referencing a lot of books too, that I actually put them in my library, and we had a lot of similar point of views and just similar ways of looking at life and looking at people, and just.
I remember something distinctly that I told you, and I don't know if it's maybe that you had dealt with something that day or that week, and you had mentioned something about how little people believe, and I said it's not up to other people to believe. It's up to you to believe. Mm-hmm. Other people don't have to see it. Yeah. You have to see it. Yeah. As long as you see it, that's the only thing that matters.
It's true.
Because it's your dream. It's not nobody else's dream.
It's true.
That's why when people... I think it's hilarious when people are like, oh, nobody believes in me. No one's supposed to believe in you.
Nobody's supposed to believe in you, right.
Period. It's nobody else's dream to become a top 10 podcaster and be best friends with the top people in this industry and become a media mogul. That's my dream. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Why should you believe in me?
Yeah. We did have this conversation.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
I remember that distinctly, and I was like...
Yeah, because I was going through... I still kind of... It's like a season when you're just... Things are just happening because you're in a good flow, and you realize that you start to lose people too, or you feel like people don't support you, the people that you thought or that are in your corner, or sometimes you realize that strangers. But it's okay.
They're only operating from what they understand.
Yeah.
Maybe they're acting that way or saying those things because they think they're protecting you. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everybody operates from their own perspective of the only way they're capable of operating in this life. Mm. So when my mother got mad at me when I dropped out of college, I didn't get mad at her. She got mad at me. She was really angry with me. She was very upset with me. She thought it was a bad decision. But I didn't get mad at her. I understood. That's all she understood. Like, she thought college was the best thing for me, even though it wasn't. So for me to turn around and get mad at my mom for being mad at me, am I really as as wise as I claim to be.
Yeah, that perspective was kind of like what we were talking about.
Correct.
Too. Remember, I'm an artist. I'm sensitive. Okay, so I was in a sensitive
Are you
place.
an empath?
I am.
Oh, okay.
I'm a super empath. I am. This is why I'm so good at what I do, as I'm able to connect with people very deeply, and I'm able to create great art because of that. So sometimes when life gives me these reality checks or these lessons that I have to learn, you know, I cry a little bit, or like sometimes you see how you
That's all right.
oh, I wasn't angry at my mom. Like maybe angry is not the word for me, but sometimes I get sad or something, or I'm just like, oh, sometimes when you grow, well, not sometimes, always, when you're growing in life, there's growing pains. There's things that happen, people that just don't come with you, or realities that you have to accept. Like, I'm changing, I'm growing. And the reality is sometimes this is a lonely road, or sometimes, like, I try to be a girl's girl. Like, I support, I'm always hoping for people to win all the time. So sometimes I expect that from people. But
You expect too much.
That's the problem. You expect too much.
You expect yourself and other people.
Exactly.
And it's... So I'll give you a great example. And I have one friend who, every time I say this, he gets very angry with me. Because he's like, oh, that's your dad. But I talk about my father just to give context. It's not because I hate him. I love my father. I adore my father. I have no... Like, all that anger and all that remorse... I went through that stage with my father a long time ago. I adore my father. At the level he's capable of being in my life. Like, I'm conscious enough to understand the level my father's at. And I love him regardless. That's unconditional love.
Yeah.
But don't expect a rabbit to swim in the water. Like, my father's a rabbit. Yeah. He knows how to jump. He doesn't know how to swim. So if I expect him to swim...
You're disappointing yourself. Yeah.
You're setting yourself up for failure. Exactly.
Yeah.
So what do? I put myself and my dad in a position to have a healthy relationship. What I expect from him is what he's capable of. And as long as I understand that, we'll have a great relationship. Nothing will, he's just not that guy who is in a good mood all the time. He's not very positive. He's a little negative. Okay. So just let him do his thing. Don't be like, Dad, why are you so negative? Oh my God, you're that. Let all that go. It's okay. Let him do his thing. He's not always going to be there. It is what it is.
It's interesting.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I just don't expect him to be there 100% of the time. Yeah. Patrick Bet-David has a saying, and it's a very universal thing. Like, it doesn't just apply to business or the workplace. He says, in the workplace, you're going to have 10s, you're going to have 100s, you're going to have 30s, you're going to have 40s, you're going to have 90s. Meaning, you're going to have people who give 10%, but like they are a 10, meaning that's the maximum they're capable of giving. You're going to have 90s, meaning they're going to give 90%, but 90% is all they can give. So they're a 90. You're going to have 40s. 40% is all they can give, but that's their maximum. So you need to put the 20s in a position where they can do 20% and give their best and do the best they can. And you need to put the 90s in a position to where they're going to succeed and do the best they can. Mind you, this is coming from your perspective of what 100% is.
Exactly.
So it's all relative.
I was just thinking that right now, yeah.
So maybe I'm an 80 to somebody else, even though I'm 100 to myself. You see how this all works?
Yeah. And you can't get offended by any of it.
Correct. So my point is, my father, to me, he's maybe a 70 or a 60. I need to put that 60 or that 70 in a position to win in my life and understand that he's never going to be past a 70. Maybe he will, but just at least understand that about him until he proves otherwise.
Yeah.
And people, that's wisdom. That's awareness. That takes a lot of like maturity, life experience. I think breaking and repairing of the spirit, really.
Yeah, self-love.
It takes so much for me to just be like, it's okay that he's not that way. It's okay that certain people are not a certain way. If everybody was loving and caring, we wouldn't appreciate it because you wouldn't know what sadness or heartbreak or pain was. Yeah. And obviously, if the other extreme, if everything was sadness and pain and depression, and then you'd never have joy, Yeah. So for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, right? That's a law of life. And if it wasn't for the bad, you wouldn't appreciate the good. Yeah. And if it wasn't for the good, there would be no bad. So it's
absolutely,
it's back and forth.
Yeah.
And in spite of, you know, whatever you go through with a person, whether it's a boyfriend, a father, your mother, your sister, your girlfriend, whatever, you have to appreciate the good and the bad that came with that person.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the best lessons that I've been able to implement in my life, like some of the things that I've determined are a principle in my life that make me me, are because of the bad experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And it taught me such valuable lessons.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's
absolutely. Absolutely. It's so good to bring light into this topic or into this thing, because that's what healing is. Like when you can forgive for real and look at those experiences no longer being a victim. That's what I was mentioning.
Right.
When you're no longer a victim of some type of a trauma or pain, but realize that I needed that pain.
right.